edition of the Community Rec podcast. For today's episode, we're joined by a very special guest who has had a long, storied career in community recreation, who also recently retired from the industry. It's Eric Williams, who is most recently the executive director of the Wayman Palmer branch of the YMCA of Greater Toledo. Before we get into our questions, Eric, I just wanted to ask how you doing today.
Well, I'm doing great. Enjoying retirement. I'm in the early stages of it, but just trying to enjoy the time with my family, my grandkids, and my wife, and just make the best of it.
Awesome. Terrific. And when exactly did you retire?
Actually retired mid-April after a 31-year career with the YMCA in 3 different cities, Pittsburgh for 12 years, Jacksonville, Florida for 7, and 10 in Toledo.
Tremendous. Well, congrats on such a long, storied career. That's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, but also the industry at large and all of your insights. So you mentioned it just a little bit there. We'll dive right into the questions. But for those who don't know and who are watching this, kind of detail your overall career with the YMCA movement and how you first got your start in the industry.
Well, actually, don't laugh, but I actually started my own business, and it was a beauty salon. Coming out of college, out of West Virginia University, I had that mindset of, I know about business, so I said, I'm going to give it a shot. But previous to that, I worked for a utility, Pennsylvania Electric company out of college, but I felt like I can get out there and start my own business, but it failed miserably. So what happened was I met some great folks in the YMCA community, particularly Julius Jones and Jim Semino, and they gave me a start. I started out in the development department, and then shortly after that, Pittsburgh in 1995 had one of the highest crime rates in the nation. So a lot of the nonprofit CEOs were brought together to figure it out. So our CEO, Julius, decided to do something about it, and we started a gang outreach program that was very successful. And the reason it was, I wanted to elaborate on a little bit, because we had the resources. We had outreach workers, we had 15 passenger vans, we had offices in the schools, and also the outreach workers lived in some of the apartment complexes that were most hit with gang activity. So I'm really, you could tell I'm very proud of that. And then shortly after, I got my opportunity to work at the Collegiate YMCA, working with college students. That was very rewarding. And then I got my first branch in 2000. And that was the interesting piece, because it was a resident YMCA, and I was asked to go up and implement some family programming, but the community, had their sense of residence and that sort of thing. And when you go back to early on, when it became a resident Y, it was in 1922. The building was built in 1922. And the funny thing about it was, for some reason, they built the building on a natural springs. So water had to be pumped out of the building every day. There were like 4 sump pumps in the sub-basement that pumped out water. But anyway, it was very interesting. I learned a lot there. I was there for 6 years. But the task was, as I said, to bring families in. But we got lucky. My boss at the time, Jim Semino, his brother was second in command at the Department of Justice. So around the time when the terrorism was picking up and that sort of thing, his brother asked, "Can you use some computers?" So Jim said yes, and we got a delivery of about 500 computers in a tractor trailer. So it was a win for me. I got lucky because we started a program that if a kid came to the class on a Saturday for 6 weeks, they would get a computer. So I ended up being a hero by proxy. Worked there, and then ran a couple urban branches until I moved on to Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, where I ran an urban and suburban branch and worked as a district exec. And then my wife and I decided we have 10 grandkids now, and back in 2015 we decided to move up north to get closer. So that's what landed me in Toledo.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your career story and all those fun and very important anecdotes. Thank you for that. Well, going off that, through all these positions and the three major branches that you mentioned that you've served, describe the overall evolution, if you will, of the community rec industry at large when it comes to nonprofit rec centers and the YMCA. What's maybe been some of the biggest changes that you've seen in that span of 30 plus years?
Well, I'll say this, that my background was start out in outreach, a lot of work in the community. In Pittsburgh, we had a lot of sites that were in the community. So I think the why kind of got away from in that evolution, got away from some of the warm and fuzzy stuff where, we were in the community, we were doing a lot of things that needed to be done and addressing issues as they came up. But it kind of the pendulum swung more towards memberships and membership units. And I understand we have to be sustainable, but over that time, I feel as though more outreach could have been done.
Awesome. Tremendous. Thank you for that. But in keeping with the present and where we're at now, what do you maybe perceive as the biggest challenges when it comes to nonprofit recreation centers in the year 2026?
I got to say funding. Like over the years, I remember when I was at the YMCA of Greater Pittsburgh, we got a lot of funding from United Way. Really, all three places that I've been, and that's kind of dwindled. And then just trying to fortify your programs by securing money at every local government, state government, and as time goes on, it's like even here in Toledo, there's probably 500 nonprofits. So you got a lot of folks that's chasing the same dollars, and it's been some challenges in that way. I would say funding is like one of the biggest challenges.
And just as a quick follow up, how do you think that's affected in recent years YMCA's? What kind of additional challenges have come from issues with funding?
I think one of the things I think about in terms of issues with funding is just the availability. Like currently now, a lot of our funding is pretty much not totally going away, but it's not there at the level that we have. For example, we have 21st century money, and we have about, when I came into town, we had 10 schools that we serviced, and now it's just one. So, and that was pretty devastating for us to leave, some of those communities that's kind of hard to hit with poverty and stuff like that.
Well, to maybe segue into maybe of a more positive note, you mentioned some names earlier, but I thought this would just be a good opportunity for you maybe to describe in detail some of the industry leaders that helped you along the way, and I think some maybe might still be in the industry as well.
Yeah. Oh boy, it's a long list. Actually, I mentioned Julius Jones earlier. He was the CEO for the YMCA of Pittsburgh for 22 years, and learned so much from him. He was my mentor. And then also Jim Samino, he was our development officer. We're still friends today, and he's like a father figure to me. And I could talk about Eric Mann. He's in Jacksonville now. We actually worked. It's funny because I was in Pittsburgh when he came to Pittsburgh, and I actually went to Jacksonville, and then he came to Jacksonville. So he's been very influential. Gigi Woodruff. There's so many wild folks that Norm Joyner. I linked up. I got to know Norm because I was enabled to go on a trip to South Africa for 10 days based on the fact that I had a good budget year, a good campaign year. So Eric and Norm made that happen for me. The one thing, it was a beautiful experience in South Africa. I don't think I'll go on a safari again because I didn't realize you're on your own out there. But
did you happen to be in maybe a safari truck that had the cage on it, or like how
no
close?
cage, no cage. It
Oh,
was
one of those. All right.
the double decker one. And real quick, so we we come along the path, and there was a male female rhino, which he told us, and then the male really got mad, like started stomping on the ground, and I asked the guy, the driver, I said, "So what do we do?" He said, "Just be quiet."
Be quiet.
And then the goal was to see the big four, the lion, the bull, the elephant, like that,
Yeah.
and and the rhino. And I said, I don't know if I want to see after that. Yeah, I mean, the rhino laid down on the ground, and the hole was as big as your bathtub. So I was, it was great, but I would have second thoughts.
That's great. Thank you for that. Um, Moving along from the leaders that helped shape you, maybe go into maybe some of the questions, not questions, but the lessons that you've
Mhm.
learned over your career, and maybe the different life lessons you've gained with working with different communities around the country as well.
Mhm. I think for me, like my personality is kind of laid back as it is. I'm a humble person, but the thing that I look at is you have to listen and learn. You have to be the type of leader, that has a pulse of the community, because the community is only as good. You're only as good as the community. So, and I'm thankful that I was able to build networks in all cities that I've been in. I'm thankful that I've been able to meet a lot of great people. In Pittsburgh, I'll say this real quick. In Pittsburgh, we went to a lot of conferences. We went to NATO, we went to General Assembly, and all those things. So there's so many people that I met over the years that I still stay connected to. Because one of the things is, when you're in a association, you have to take a look at what other folks are doing, so that you could get better at what you do. So I really, I think that was very helpful for me in my career. And I also, I'm really big on like giving people everything that I have. Like whatever I know, you'll know. So when young people come into the movement, I make sure I connect with them, regardless of race, whatever. I just say, hey, here's some things that I could share with you if you need me to. And a lot of folks have stepped up and asked me for assistance.
Well, that's a very good segue into one of the last questions I do have for you. But what's your lasting tips and advice from everything and everyone that you've met, the different YMCA's you've worked with? What would be your lasting tips or advice that you'd give someone who might be just now starting in the industry at large?
I think, well, yes, yeah, that's a good question. I Most of the folks that the wise heavily part-time folks, so they come and go. But what I try to do is say to them, if you want a career in a Y, do the things you need to do to get your certifications, trainings, and stuff like that. But most importantly, we're not here for a paycheck. Like we're not here, to work for money or whatever. You got to have that passion, and you got to care about the community and care about people, because one of the things I'm grateful for is that we changed a lot of lives, and it wasn't just me, but we changed a lot of lives, in each community that we've been in, and I'm very grateful for it. So I could step away in a good space, because a lot of folks are like, "You're leaving?" Like, no, no, don't. But it's time. But I'll continue to help wherever I can along the way.